Hello students, this week we're going to be talking about understanding poetry. Specifically, what are the basics of poetry and how do I understand a poem? We'll also throw out there that the previous videos I've made on reading comprehension and on theme and on the meaning of words and phrases would also be very helpful to reference to better understand poetry. We'll go ahead and get started. Alright, so what are the basics of poetry? Poetry is a literature genre that uses concise language to express feelings and ideas. It is oftentimes highly structured, and it usually contains musical qualities, such as rhyme, meter, alliteration, etc. There are exceptions to this, like sometimes there are poems that aren't very structured, and there's of course many kinds of poetry structure that you might run into depending on the type of poem. And sometimes a poem might be quite musical and have like lots of rhymes in it, or a lot of alliteration, and sometimes it may have hardly any. So that kind of varies from poem to poem. Poetry is made up of lines and stanzas as well. So a line refers to the words that make up one segment of the poem before breaking to the next line. That sounds confusing for something that's very simple. It's just when the poet presses the enter key is kind of the simple way to think about that. We all kind of should know what a line is. There's often rhyming words at the end of lines. These are called end rhymes, quite simply. A stanza is a collection of lines similar to a paragraph. So a stanza may have many lines, such as something called an octet, which is a stanza with 8 lines in it. Or it might have very few lines, such as something called a monostitch, or a one-line stanza, or something called a couplet, or a 2-line stanza. Or you could have anywhere in the middle. You might have a 4-line stanza, a 5-line stanza. Again, that's just kind of like a mini paragraph. It's like a poetry version of a paragraph. Also, most poems will have something called a turn, or a point where the poem shifts directions or changes. Alright, so now on to the real important part here. How do I understand a poem? This is kind of difficult to do sometimes. Poetry is very concise language, so you'll notice that there's going to be a lot of rereading and stuff like that, and really thinking and reflecting through things, because it's usually not so simple as just reading a story, for example. So you really have to kind of take your time with every poem that you read usually. We'll go through these steps here. Step number 1, read the poem 1 or 2 times without stopping. You want to try to read as fluently as you can so that you can follow the correct pausing, rhythm, and rhyme. Think of it like a song. You don't want it to sound off, otherwise you're just going to be kind of missing it a little bit. You're going to be missing parts of it if you're not reading it correctly. So if it does sound off, try reading it again differently. Especially just making sure the rhyming sounds right and things like that. So just read it 1 or 2 times without stopping. Next, you want to picture any images or situations that are described in the poem. And what emotions or meaning could this image add, or could these images add? So you really want to take time to kind of picture what is being described in the poem, as that can a lot of times help you figure out the connotations, what goes along with those images, to kind of help you piece together what emotions and what meaning that the poet might be trying to come across with. Then you want to go ahead and ask yourself some questions to reflect on the poem, just to try to piece together what all is happening in this poem, because you'll likely be somewhat confused or at least need a little clarification. So first of all, what idea or topic is this poem about? It is oftentimes a good practice to just see what the title says, as that is often a good clue of what the poem might be about. You can also ask, what is the situation or what is happening in the poem, sort of like a plot line of the poem if you want to think of it like that. So just what's happening in it. Is there a turning point in this poem, and if so, where? What does it say at first, and then what does it say later when it changes? So what is it before and what does it change to? So if you can kind of find that spot, that can oftentimes help you understand meaning a little bit more. What tone or emotions do I see here in this poem? Is there an emotion that I think that the author wants me to see or feel in this poem? Is there any figurative language used, something like a metaphor? And what could this mean? What words seem important or unusual? And how does this word add to the poem? Again, because it's so concise and it's so short, how a lot of these poems are. There are long poems as well, but because poetry is just so banking on the few words that are in it oftentimes, like you really want to pay attention to word choice a lot, because oftentimes even one word can really add to the meaning, which is why I listed earlier that the whole video on the meaning of words and phrases can also be a good thing for you to watch. So once you've done those first 3 steps, the third one being probably the longest there, you want to reread sections of the poem that are confusing to you and try to figure them out. You also want to read the poem all the way through, again, once you think that you do understand it, and then once you kind of think you understand the poem for the most part, you want to go ahead and ask yourself a question about theme, something like, what is the author saying about this topic? And another one being, what are they saying about life? And hopefully by this point you can figure out that question, what the author really is saying about life, what emotions they have in this poem, and kind of why they wrote this poem and everything like that. And that would be kind of my steps for how you can hopefully understand a poem. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and look at an example poem. This is a poem by Langston Hughes called Dreams. Before we get started looking at understanding this poem, I do want to clarify just the whole lines and stanzas thing. That first part where you see hold fast to dreams, that would be a line, and then the next line would be for if dreams die. So that is the definition of a line there, if you were confused on that. And there are 2 stanzas in here, so the end of the first stanza ends after that cannot fly, that line there, and there's 8 lines. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick. But alright, so we're going to try to go ahead and see how we can understand this poem. So we're going to kind of walk through those steps that I just went over and see if we can figure this out. So this is Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. Alright, so we just did step 1 where we read the poem. So now what we're going to do is go to step 2, which is picturing any images that we see in this poem. So I see 2, maybe 3 images in here. First thing is that image of holding on to dreams. That's kind of an image, I suppose, but just kind of the idea of not letting go to your dreams. But a little bit more of an image here would be that part there where it says, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. So that image, kind of some emotions I think with that is like a bird that cannot fly. It's like it's not living up to its potential. It's not fulfilling its purpose. It's kind of sad and not doing what it could be doing. So that's kind of like a sad image there, that it can't fly. And then the next image is life is a barren field frozen with snow. And with that one, I would say that word barren there, that image, I'm kind of getting the emotion of like kind of this empty feel. And then of course the snow, it being kind of cold, so this cold and empty sort of field. So I think with just those emotions, just kind of emotions like hopelessness or just being sad and stuff like that is kind of some emotions I could see for those images. So that's just looking at, trying to picture what emotions go along with those images there. So next part is we're going to go ahead and ask some reflection questions on this poem and see if we can figure out a little bit more of its meaning. So what idea or topic is this poem about? And another tip is to look at the title. So the title is Dreams, so we know it's going to be talking about dreams. It could be talking about dreams like that you sleep at night and have a dream, or it could be talking about like your hopes and dreams. I do believe this is probably talking about your hopes and dreams though, because it's talking about what life is like if you let go of your dreams. So that sounds more like hopes and dreams to me. Next question, what is the situation or what is happening in this poem? Well, what's happening is the author is warning us what will happen in life. if we kind of let go of our dreams. He's saying to hold on to them, because if they die, if you let go of your dreams, then your life looks like these two images that he paints. And kind of, we went through a little bit what emotions go along with those images, so we can kind of guess what this poem might be about. So that's what the situation is in this poem. And is there a turning point in this poem? I would say that there's one that kind of happens twice. So I would say it turns from where you're talking about the dreams dying, or when you're letting go of your dreams, and then it goes on to, if that happens, life is a broken-winged bird that can't fly, and life is a barren field frozen with snow. So you kind of have that turn right after your dreams are kind of gone. Then he turns and says, this is what your life would be like. So that would be the turn. And what tone or emotions do I see here? I see definitely some sad emotions and some sort of, maybe even like emotions of regret, maybe from like the author. Definitely some like warning kind of thoughts here of just like, this is a sad situation that I have seen, the narrator has seen, and probably the author. So don't kind of go with this. So definitely sort of some sad and sad emotions and just warnings. Okay. Then we have, is there any figurative language used? Yes, there's actually quite a bit in this little poem. First of all, you can't actually physically hold fast to dreams. That means you're holding onto a dream. You can't literally do that, so that's figurative language. Specifically, it is personification. So yeah, you can't do that. But I think the effect of that is kind of, if you're holding on to something, it might be something precious to you. So I think the fact that he's saying that you're holding fast to dreams, it kind of shows that dreams can be quite precious to you. Then the next piece of figurative language is for if dreams die. Dreams also can't die physically, so that is also figurative language, and that is also personification there. But I think it's just a stronger way of saying to not let go of them, because it's like this precious thing that it's like a death almost. So you don't want your dreams to die, kind of a thing. And then kind of similar things at the second stanza, sort of repeats with the figurative language there. Oh, well, I kind of skipped that one actually. Life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. That is a metaphor, just kind of talking about what life is like. So that is kind of comparing life to a broken-winged bird and to a barren field frozen with snow, which we kind of went over the emotions, just kind of being sad and hopeless with those things. Okay, so what words do I think seem important or unusual? I did mention the word die being kind of one word that's kind of strong in there, and also I would say the word barren, describing life as a barren field. It just really has this empty feel to the, that just has a very empty feel to it. So I definitely feel like that word kind of adds a hopeless emotion to the poem, so I would say that's what those words add. All right, and then step 4 is to reread sections of the poem that are confusing to you and try to figure it out. I think we're going to skip this one, but if there were something that was confusing to you, you could reread it. And then step 5, we want to read all the way through the poem once we think we understand it. So I'll read it again. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. And then we want to ask ourselves the final question of what do we think the author is saying about life, or what do we think the author is saying about this topic? The topic again is dreams, so what do we think the author is saying about dreams? He kind of says it in the poem, honestly, that you just want to hold on to dreams. For life, your life could be sad, or you could be regretful, or you might not have meaning in your life if you let go of your dreams. So that could be a theme for that. So that would be kind of my way of analyzing this poem, and hopefully you can kind of follow these steps as well and try to understand different poems that you read as well. Hopefully this was helpful, and see you next time.